Well, welcome to the University Museums Group 25th Anniversary Conference. We suddenly realised last year that this was the 25th year, so we thought we should celebrate with a conference, and of course the relatively recently refurbished Ashmolean was the perfect venue, and thank you very much Christopher and the team for hosting us. I'm Nick Merriman. Until yesterday I was chair of the University Museums Group, but I'm sort of continuing that for at least the next 15 minutes or so. It's some kind of papal emeritus type function, I think. The new co-chairs are Sally MacDonald and Kate Forster. So the occasion of the 25th anniversary of the formation of UMG is, of course, a good time to reflect on the changes that have been experienced in university museums over this period. And in thinking about this, I realised that actually the University Museums Group was born out of a perceived crisis. University museums and collections had, probably from the 1970s, been under some pressure as teaching sort of decisively moved away from object-based learning to lectures, and then more increasingly towards screen-based forms of teaching. And right through the 70s and into the 80s, I think a lot of universities were saying, well, why have we got all of this stuff? You know, it was often seen to be something of a historic burden that was difficult to know what to do with, but didn't have much to contribute to the future. I'm not talking about all institutions, of course, but sort of there's a general feeling in the sector. University museums and collections have been subject to a gradual sort of withering of support. And by 1986, this was identified as a fully blown crisis of funding due to changes in the funding regime in universities. And there was actually, in '86, a whole issue of Museums Journal, the old-style Museums Journal, devoted to university museums. And Alan Warhurst, my predecessor at Manchester Museum, wrote an article, quite an influential article called The Crisis in University Museums, which then directly led to the formation of the University Museums Group to try and act as an advocacy body to funders and other stakeholders to ensure the sort of continued survival of university museums. 25 years later, of course, we're all aware, problems haven't gone away. We're all acutely aware of the financial situation that the whole country is in. But I venture to say that university museums and collections are probably in the best place they have ever been over the last 25 years. And I just wanted to, in the time I've got now, just to explore some of the reasons for that. I think the first is the shift to a general recognition by universities that they have an important civic role to play, be it within their own local community or more globally. And many have recognised that their museums and collections have a really important role to play. So Manchester University, for example, has 3 goals, the usual 2 around teaching and research, but a third goal of social responsibility, recognising that the university hasn't got just an internal value to the academic community, but has a responsibility due to the public funds it receives to spread that, the benefits of research and teaching more widely to the public. And of course, a vitally important element of this, of course, is widening participation, with many museums and collections now providing a welcoming face to engage able school pupils who haven't got a family background or participation in higher education, and increasingly I think we're being valued for that important work. Related to this, of course, coming up more recently, is the importance of the impact agenda. I think many of us are now finding academics actively approaching us with ideas for exhibitions based on their work, because they recognise that university museums and collections can connect them with a much broader public than they would otherwise be able to. So in the Manchester Museum, for example, the bulk of our exhibition programme is now the sort of public expression of research projects undertaken by academics within the university. So our current exhibition, there was a plug on Radio 4 yesterday at the time of Crufts for the academic piece of work on the history of dog breeding. And our current exhibition is a direct result of that AHRC funded project. Our next one after that is one on coral in nature and culture. And I think we and Manchester and many of the rest of you realise that we have this huge academic hinterland of new work that can be a great driver for our public and exhibition programme that is also unique to us. And we haven't perhaps capitalised on that, and the universities haven't capitalised on that enough either until relatively recently. The new fee regime, of course, means that universities are now competing amongst each other to find something that distinguishes them from the rest, and something, that little bit extra. And many universities are realising that their cultural assets are indeed assets now and not burdens. And the opportunity of having access to, say, the material in the collections is a real benefit to students. And the same goes, of course, for recruiting the best staff. Having an outstanding collection, museum or gallery enhances both the quality of life in the campus, which is an added benefit for the recruitment of staff. And of course, if you have a specialist resource that no other university has, this can distinguish you internationally in research terms. Many American universities realised this a long time ago when they snapped up manuscripts and artworks, often from the UK. British universities, I think, have been a bit slower off the mark to appreciate the assets they have on their own doorstep, but they're now very much beginning to do that. And of course, it's the quality of the collections held in university museums that's one of their most remarkable features. We, as I think we all know now, we comprise just about 4% of the museums in the UK, but we hold in England at least 30% of the designated collections. And this has helped stimulate an unprecedented capital investment in university museums over the last 15 years perhaps, with the help of Heritage Lottery Fund and others. And of course, the Ashmolean is probably the most outstanding example of that. Of course, it's not what you have, but what you do with it that's really important. And I think the relative freedom that university museums have to operate in has meant that we've developed some really innovative practice around object-based learning and engagement. So from being in a crisis of identity and confidence 25 years ago, we're now in a position, I think, where university museums are confident in the special role they occupy at the intersection between the university, the public, and the world of museums. All of this, of course, has been greatly helped by a relatively stable funding regime through Arts and Humanities Research Council and latterly through HEFCE, and I'm conscious I'm talking about England, of course, here, with a clear brief for excellence and for provision beyond the needs of the parent university. And this coincides rather nicely with the approach of the Arts Council that some at least are funded from us. So we have a very congenial but demanding funding regime in which we can flourish and innovate. So although there are risks on the horizon in the form of an uncertain financial future and the risks that would be posed if there was a retreat from widening participation and impact, I want to end on an avowedly upbeat note. As I said, I think university museums are in a better place now than they have been in the last 25 years. And if we continue with confidence about our distinctive role within both the university sector and the museum sector, we'll continue to prosper in the coming years. So this conference is a really excellent opportunity to survey where we've come from and where we're going to in the future. And I very much hope that this will be a conference where it's not just speaking, but there's plenty of interaction. And with that, I want to introduce our opening speaker, Dr. David Sweeney, is Director of Research, Innovation and Skills at HEFCE and has spoken of his confidence and support in university museums on a number of occasions. I'd just like to invite David to come up and make the opening address. David Sweeney.